Hi, this is Leonora, and I want to talk a little bit about sovereignty in relationship to healing, particularly healing trauma. So sovereignty is a process and a state of consciousness, and you could say it's an evolving state of consciousness as we keep recalibrating our system. When I say system, I mean body-mind system, not just the nervous system, the whole system. When we recalibrate that, what we're kind of recalibrating towards is our true self. And sometimes I like to think of that as that there's a divine blueprint of who I am. It's already here. And what is keeping me separate from that is the trauma. And so trauma, in one way of looking at it, is something that happened, an event from the past, something that happened where your nervous system or your whole system was not able to return directly to a homeostasis. It was not able to return to love. Yeah, so love being a description of something indescribable. Love being our true self, our unified self. Yeah. So, you know, this is such a paradox to speak about. So I just do my best. When something happens, what happens often is that we become overwhelmed. So the system cannot integrate as it goes. It cannot digest what's happening. Yeah. And when that happens, it's kind of a bit like the Big Bang. There's an experience or an emotional vibration that we might feel in our gut or in our body. And then there's a part of us that separates out because of the overwhelm. So it's a kind of dissociation. And that part that separates out doesn't always come back. And what helps bring it back is if whoever's around us is holding a good vibration of safety and love. Yeah. So if we don't have that outside dynamic, then it's very difficult. It may be very difficult to come back in. And we may not even be conscious of it. We may go into shock, and we may just be completely changed by the experience, or we might be subtly changed by the experience. But what's actually happened is there's a part of us that has frozen into a separate place. And that part kind of gets enmeshed in what I'd call a sense of self, a sense of I. And it becomes very engaged in keeping you safe. It becomes engaged in coping with life, in making adjustments so that you don't get into those kinds of situations again that can overwhelm you. It puts kind of a circumference around your field of, you know, what feels comfortable and what doesn't. So you start having limits on what's possible for you because of, let's say, safety. So the key factors that are required for healing trauma is to develop a container or a connection through the felt sense to what I'd like to call your soul. It's a field of energy that you can become present to, that you can become one with. And in so doing, you're creating a field of stable resilience that can meet experiences from the past, which are actually here right now. So, you know, in the deeper reality, there is no past and there is no future, but the present moment is the most powerful doorway. And when we meet fully the present moment, the unresolved past experiences where we did split off, where, you know, emotional energy didn't get completely digested or resolved, will appear. Yeah. So what's kind of weird but normal is that we remain separate from ourselves because we don't want to feel that stuff, because the part that's separate from us, the sense of self that we've become, is holding a story, and part of that story is it's not safe, I don't want to go there. Yeah. And yet go there we must. And so the first step to prepare for healing, and is healing in itself, is what I call sovereignty. And sovereignty is just a practice of working with the felt sense, working with it energetically to make contact with that field, and to be able to notice things within the field, and to kind of master what's going on there through what I'd call the alchemy of love. So the alchemy of love is really a set of qualities or alignments that are very enabling for transformation. And some of those alignments might sound like or feel like being open to be here, being sincere about the process, being willing to connect, being willing to change, being willing to meet the truth. Those sorts of alignments are very powerful. Working energetically, we can start to learn discernment of what our field is telling us. So our field is like our soul, and the soul, it's a sacred connection. And so as we establish this connection with our soul, it's very, you know, the sacredness of it is really this attitude of listening, you know, being willing to hear the wisdom that is contained within our field. Yeah, so there's kind of a quality of reverence, of willingness, of humbleness, of sincerity, yeah, and a sort of innocence. So as we cultivate these qualities energetically and come to know how to access those qualities, we are also at the same time learning to transform our system and to reintegrate the parts of us that became separate when something traumatic happened. So, you know, the practice of what I call heart-centered sovereignty also includes moving our sense of self from where it normally lives, which has an attitude and a vibe, yeah, let's just say it's negative, to a more resourceful place, which is in the heart space. And that connection to the heart space serves us as a soul initiation to make direct contact with a vibration that is closer to love, closer to our true self, and closer to the light of our soul. And it's really doesn't require anyone to know anything. It's just this attitude of innocence, willingness, humbleness, and so forth that enable us to move our awareness to the heart space, and in so doing, to start to rewire our whole system, to reorient our sense of self to a place that is more loving and more powerful for healing, and more powerful as a way to show up in life. So heart-centered sovereignty is sort of the beginning, the middle, and the end of the work. But it's as we, you know, do the practice of heart-centered sovereignty, it includes things like expanding our awareness, maintaining connection to our whole field as we explore parts of our field that may be expressing emotions or physical sensations or tensions or mental phenomena. It creates a stable canvas on which all things arise and all things appear. And part of doing this work is it allows us to understand the sort of dualistic and relativistic relationship that we have between ourself and everything else. So it's very much about relationships. A relationship is born in time, and relationship is born in a sense of separation from self. So, for example, much of our trauma inhibits and limits our ability to relate with each other authentically, because we may be afraid, we may feel that we need to be a certain way to be loved by somebody else, or we may feel that we need to show up in a certain way to be accepted within a group. And so all of this is about relationship and trauma. And sovereignty is a way of working through that material very effectively, very quickly, and quite powerfully. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share for this week. And yeah, stay tuned. There'll be more videos coming soon. Bye for now.